Today on the Quest Forums channel, I'm going to be asking an admittedly bizarre question, which is, what is the connection between the conversion of Kanye West and the recent tragedy, really the great evil, in Mexico, where 3 women and 6 small children were gunned down? And I'm not saying that there is any type of causal connection between them, that one or the other made the opposite happen. What I'm saying is there any type of relationship, any sort of bridge between these two events? And I ask that because my mind certainly created it. This is something that I thought about, as strange as it sounded even to me. And after considering why I would do that, I wanted to kind of share the results and see if maybe some other people feel the same way about it once I have that explanation on the record. And so starting with Kanye, his experience with Christ is not something that I've really looked into very closely or that I've followed, because I've never really followed Kanye, I think, is a big reason for it. And I've just not taken that much of an interest. I do know, of course, who he is, and he's kind of impossible to avoid in our culture. But the things that you hear about him, of course, are largely negative. And so a lot of Christians, I think, have been skeptical of his conversion just because of, I guess, what we could call his impulsiveness. And we wonder how long this is going to last. And I'll admit that I have been in that camp as well. But also, what I've come to realize is that is my issue. That's my problem. That's really nothing to do with Kanye, and I have no right, really, to impose that on him. I think we can be careful, and I think that, like anyone else, that we can look for any type of errors and try to point them out. But we cannot doubt his sincerity, and we also should not doubt the impact that he can have, the positive good that he can now do because of what he's gone through, the transformation that he's experienced. And the reason we can say that is looking at the biblical example of the Apostle Paul. Here we have someone who called himself the worst of all sinners that there was, and meant it, because he was a person who had persecuted the church, who had hunted Christians down in order to have them imprisoned, and also in the hope that they could eventually be executed for what they believed. And in fact, he'd assisted in the execution of the first martyr, Stephen. And so you have this person, and then he has this experience where he's confronted by Christ, and then everything changes for him. And then look what he went on to do, and the things that the legacy that he left behind in his writings and in his example that are still affecting people 2,000 years later. And Kanye is not going to have that type of impact because he's not an apostle, for one thing. But for another thing, he was not as far gone as Paul was to begin with. And so they're not the same, but Kanye West can have a very positive impact. Because here we have a person who had, as far as the world is concerned, everything. And he realized that it was worthless. He came to Christ, and now he has a platform to proclaim the gospel message, and he is taking full advantage of it, and doing so very courageously. That's something that we should be happy about, the opportunity that this presents. We've been praying for revival for a very long time, and now maybe here is the beginnings, the spark of one that can begin again. And that, I think, is where the connection was made to what occurred in Mexico, at least for me. Because my first reaction to that news is probably what most people thought as well. I was angry. I wanted to see justice done. Donald Trump said that the cartel people were monsters and that they needed to be hunted down and destroyed, and I agreed with him. And I still agree that that is what needs to happen, that there needs to be justice in this world. But also, thinking about Kanye's experience, I realized that those people are monsters, but so was Paul. And Kanye has been pretty monstrous too, and so have I, and so have you. We all are. There's something wrong with each and every one of us that needs to be transformed, and transformation is only going to come through Christ. We have a broken society. It's broken on both sides of the border. And we're also broken in ourselves. And so when selfish desire meets a culture that says that you should just do whatever you want to do in order to be happy, then the drug culture is something that you get out of that. And the only way to escape it and to truly turn life around by living for something better rather than just living for what you want is by coming to Christ and relying on Him for salvation. Kanye West has been, I believe, a very powerful example of how that is possible. And I am hoping that people looking at him will see the value in that change as well, and that they will follow that example. And this can maybe be the beginnings of that change that will be able to transform things on both sides of the border. And so that was where I saw just how these things tied together, because I heard about them, or at least was thinking about them, at roughly the same time. And they just kind of formed that bridge of saying redemption is possible. And it's the only thing that's going to make things better. So hopefully I have made my case here. You can at least see where I was coming from to connect these two. If you have any maybe further thoughts on the matter or some follow-up questions, you can feel free to leave those in the comments below. Thanks for checking out this video, and until next time, keep looking up.